What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Bianconeri zone. Welcome back to the second time I have my good friend Kanan on. People have been asking for it. Actually, it was actually a very good show. The first one, like the numbers, the response were fantastic. And it's always a pleasure speaking to you because, like I said in the first one, you have very strong opinions. Some might think it's extremely controversial, but that's what it actually makes very, very fun. But first off, how are you doing, my friend?
Man, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I was just telling you before the show. I've been more excited to be here, and I'm the guest, let alone being the host. So yeah, man, super excited. I love being here. I love speaking to you always, and yeah, it's super cool, man.
Yeah, let's waste no time because I, I think if people remember the first video we did, it was all rosy, or like it was all let's dream, what could be, what will be. We kind of have a feeling what will be right now. Um, I'm gonna
Yeah.
ask you the first question just really quickly, or like at the beginning. It's
Mm,
August, first week of August, second week of August actually.
yeah.
We kick off our season in about a week and a half or so. Are you worried?
Hmm. Well, no, to be honest, no. And I would say that I'm not worried because worry sort of is a condition of expectation, and I didn't have much expectation to begin with. Right? It was very clear. The image was very clear to me that we would likely not see a resemblance, not even the full scope of Monte's ideas and the reconstruction of the team and whatnot, but even just a resemblance of it in the first 3 4 months. Man, we have so much work to do. First of all, the guy didn't even have Motta and his staff. They didn't even have the chance to have a full preseason. Not even a full, just a half preseason even, right? It's like we just now got the starting 11 in order, and it is the first or second week of August. So, and then about the mercado and the sort of signings and whatnot. I don't, I don't know if I said this in the first live, Alejandro, if you remember, but I said that I was judging Giuntoli on sales
Yeah, you
more
did.
than I was on signing. Yeah, and it's precisely for what we're seeing unfolding right now. Is that this is the thing that he really can't control aside from putting players outside of the project and in the market for sale. But it's difficult to do that as a sporting director. It's like, what would you do? If you had the Chiesa situation or the McKennie situation or the Melik situation or the Arthur situation, there's nothing in your hands to do, and that's the difficult part. So it's good that, and I'm happy that Giuntoli and Motta have kind of come to a consensus about the players that we need to have out of the project. That's a good sign. But actually getting them to be out of the project and sold and moved on is a difficult thing to do. So I wouldn't say I'm disappointed, to be honest. It's pretty reasonable what's happening right now. It's fairly reasonable. What about you? What do you think?
I agree with your point that I think the only people actually expect like day and night type of change are the people who are waiting to jump on Mota's back, and say, "Ah, look, you're doing Those are the people who want immediate change. They probably like, even
Yeah,
though deep down inside they know it's not realistic, what they're asking, but they don't care. It's an agenda. They need to run that. So
yeah,
for me, I'm patient. I can be very patient if I can see, okay, this is going in a good direction. I guess. But
hmm,
I agree with you. Sales, you don't control that. We are trying to sell players we do not rate. So I can only imagine other clubs looking at them. On top of that, the clubs looking at them cannot pay the wages we are paying those players.
exactly.
That's a massive issue, and
Yeah,
I acknowledge that from day one. I knew that was not going to be. It's easy to just say, get those 10 players out. But then it's like, okay, Kostic is on 3.5 million. What now? Like, what are you gonna do about it? Like, it's it's a very weird situation. I'm slightly worried. I'm slightly
mhm,
worried because I don't like. I don't know if you watched the next gen game or something. We had two
I did.
players on the bench. Like, we have Fajoli and we had Cabal on the bench. Yeah,
Yeah,
Miretti is injured, Atsic is injured, but actually Atsic, maybe he's gonna play for the next gen as well. So I don't even really include him in the as a first teamer. So we had two players. We had Sekulov, I think Savona, and two goalkeepers on the bench. So two players basically.
yeah,
It's the second
yeah,
week of August. I am extremely worried for that part. Not because
mm,
I don't think players are gonna come in. I think they're coming in a bit too late. That is my worry. You see, against Brest, he played Thuram as a 6. He played him as an 8.
yeah,
We interchanged way out from left to right. You can see he's doing a lot of things, or he's trying to do a lot of things, which is okay. It's preseason.
yeah,
But my fear is that he needs to do things for the first 3 games that he was in July into the Continental. He didn't really imagine of doing. That's my worry a little bit.
mm,
That
mm,
I do believe we're gonna make the signings we probably need, but it's a bit too late for my liking, especially because the players we need to sign are gonna be key players for Motta. Whether
yeah,
it's gonna be Koopmeiners or another player of that profile, player like Toribio who's better on the ball at the back, or actually wingers, because we do not have any wingers. Yeah, Weah is
yeah.
playing, but I'm sorry, like that's not
Not a
my cup
starter.
of tea. No, it's not a
Yeah,
starter. So they're key positions, and it's frustrating for me because now you're asking him to go out there against Como, I think Verona on the second day, and then Roma, and pick up the points we actually need to pick up, but not
yeah,
with your idea. Basically, for me,
yeah,
that's a worry. That's
yeah,
personally for me a worry, especially because after the Roma game, it's international break, 2 weeks, and all these players
mm,
are gone again. It's like, for me, it's a bit frustrated.
yeah,
I'm frustrated for that part. I really am.
dude, Alejandro. It's like if we think about it, even like in every like conceivable format, if we think about it in the short term, the intermediate term, the long term, there isn't much scope for optimism with with Motta working with his squad fully, right? Because you mentioned the point about the international break and all these players leaving and whatnot, and then you can think about next summer as well, because next summer we're gonna have the Club World Cup, right?
Yep.
And then after the Club World Cup, there are going to be some sales, and then he can have preseason, and he can have a preseason that's cut short for the second year in a row. After that, 2026 is the World Cup, the actual World Cup. So for the next 3 years, the likelihood of Motta having a full preseason with the squad that he has is slim to none. So that's not a cause for a lot of optimism in that sense. It's also not in Motta or the club's hands, really. It's just really extraordinarily bad timing. But you touched on a couple of points that are very, very interesting. I think the first point is that, which is something that we haven't really addressed well enough, I think, is the fact that we're suffering from and we're paying the consequences of the suffering that we saw the past 3 years. Because these are players, Alejandro, these are players that we should be getting at least significant amounts of offers for. The players that are on the mercato right now. Like Kostic, a couple of years ago, he was the Europa League
Yeah.
MVP.
2 years ago.
We could we could disagree about whether we like him or not as a player, right? For me personally, he's not even a football player. He's barely a football player, right? But he had value. That's the point. He had value. Melik had value. Chiesa, Arthur, all of these guys. But we didn't platform them enough. And now we're suffering the consequences of not platforming them in the sense of giving them a chance to actually perform and at least maintain their value. And also we're paying them according to their value, but devaluing them on the pitch. This is the consequence that we're paying for like the past 3 years.
Yep.
So, but the other interesting point that you mentioned, which is also to an extent worrying. This is the thing that I want to sort of reserve judgment on until the 1st of September, which is the whole thing about depth, especially in the back four. Because to me, we have 5 defenders. I don't count Gatti, to be honest. Gatti is not reliable. I really don't. Like Gatti is okay. We're trying to be rational, right? Gatti is depth for me if we're playing Verona or Como or Udinese at home or something like that. But let's ask ourselves a serious question. if we're playing Inter or Roma, and one of our defenders, starting defenders, is out, and Gatti has to play, how do we feel about that?
I feel nervous. I feel very nervous.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly. He's not depth. I don't consider that depth. Gatti is not depth for me. Cabal is great, and he probably should and will be contending for a starting spot soon. But Gatti, no. And then you're just going to go into the season with basically 5 defenders to fill 8 positions. That you could call a cause for consideration or for concern. But we'll have to wait until the 1st of September about that, man.
Yeah, I mean, we need the thing is right now, and even like when I drop this video, potentially we actually might have signed a player or whatever. I'm looking at the news and I'm soaking it up, and you need to filter certain things because you have journalists actually battling each other on social media. Like it's getting to that point because it's actually in Europe, it's been a very slow type of window, overall. It's been very slow. So everybody's kind of trying to be the best, or the first one. But if you just look at the news and you sit back, the theme of the summer is we agreed terms with players. Players are holding out to join us, but we agreed no terms with any of these clubs. So it feels like the club, they're so extremely calm. If you listen to Giuntoli, Motta, John Alcon, it's like, man, why are you guys worried? Just chill,
Mm-hmm.
But if you look what the media is putting out there, it feels like the club is like, we're trying, like we agreed these players want to join, but in the end, you're like, we couldn't sign them all because, we didn't have the money, basically.
Yeah.
That's kind of the team. It's like, it's close, but actually it's not really close, is it? You agree terms with Adeyemi, with Koopmeiners, with Toribo, with Calafiori, with Galen, like the list goes on and on and on. We agreed with terms with all these players, which is very easy because even the situation we're in right now, why wouldn't they want to play for Juve, With all due respect from the clubs they're coming from, Porto, which is a good club. Like, I'm not saying that Atalanta, Nice, it's a massive step up. It should be a massive step up. So agreeing terms, it's not really the difficult part, in my opinion. It's, getting those deals done. And now people are circling back to, you wasted money on Douglas Luiz. You shouldn't be buying Thuram. And I would be sitting back and I'm like, but actually we haven't done much. Like Di Gregorio, we're paying Di Gregorio next summer, basically. Thuram, kind of same thing. The Douglas Luiz thing is also in installments. Like, I get the point. I get that point, but it's like, it's so close. Just get one done. Like, give Motta something. Like, actually something to work with. Because you watch that next gen game, that's the starting 11 against Como right now, basically. That's it. That's what it's going to be. Is it good enough? It should be good enough to beat Como at home. I'm not making excuses. It should be good enough to beat Como at home. But it's not ideal, like I said, because let's say it's the 15th of August, and then Koopmeiners, Toribo, Galeno, and maybe another winger show up at the Continassa. I'm not sure what Motta needs to do with it. Like, the season is kicking off, You win against Como, are you like, okay, sorry, guys, these 3 were the main targets. They're all coming into the team ASAP. That's also not going to happen. And if you don't win against Como, you're going to put them in the starting 11. And it's like, now you're forcing a little bit. So the setup for me is a bit weird, And maybe I'm wrong. And at the end, we get those players. People are like, whatever, we got them over the line. It just feels off. But it comes back to the sales, like you said. Like, the value of these players are at an all-time low. They were low the 18th of July when Giuntoli said, Chiesa, hey, they're all part of the project. 12 days later, I think him and Motta spoke and like, these players are not going. So say what you have to say in front of the camera. Motta said, he didn't say, we will look for a solution. He basically said, and he included Chiesa, he said, they're good players, but they need to go somewhere else to actually get some playing time. I'm like, you told everybody, please take him off our hands, for whatever price. And then it goes back to Milik and to McKennie. Yeah, Fiorentina are interested, but if you're asking for 4 million being McKennie, I mean, I think Fiorentina will have a good laugh. you know, and
Mhm.
Giuntoli will have a cry at the same time because it's not realistic, you know, it's not realistic. I
Yeah,
don't know what Chiesa's asking, by the way. That actually has not really been documented, to be honest.
yeah,
I'm assuming
yeah.
it's a lot. I'm assuming it's quite a lot. But
It's a
again,
raise at least. Yeah,
it is a raise. But then you get the news
yeah.
of we agreed terms for Chiesa with Roma 25, and he was like, nope, not doing this. And
Mm.
now when the value is around 15, he's like, maybe I will join Roma. I mean, Giuntoli must be absolutely fuming right now. It's
Yeah, yeah.
we're
So
being kept hostage by these players, but it's not Giuntoli's fault because he didn't hand out those contracts.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And the thing is that even with the Chiesa situation, the things that were reported about the Roma deal weren't that he was against it per se. It was that Roma pulled out because he was indecisive.
Yeah,
That he basically didn't give them a yes or a no about it. And it's kind of the same. It's the same approach that he had with like sort of leveling out the playing field or feeling it out with us and with the Euros. Because you remember before the Euros, they were talking about he'll play the Euros and then we'll sit at the negotiating table and discuss and see what's going on. But that didn't work out too well for him, and now it's kind of like desperation mode. But there's a precedent with Motta specifically when it comes to the players that he doesn't like or doesn't want to be part of the project. Even though I don't really think that he doesn't necessarily like Chiesa, rate Chiesa.
yeah,
I don't necessarily. I don't think that that's true. I think it's a financial thing more than anything.
yeah. I
But
agree.
yeah, he has this precedent with it. Like last summer, he did the same thing with Musabaro at Bologna. He came out and gave the exact same statement, Ariano. The exact same. He was like, Musabaro is a good player. He's a great player. He's done a lot for Bologna. But now he needs to move on and showcase his quality somewhere else. Word for word. That's what he said. So, there's at least clarity about the project, that's a good thing, in my estimation. It's a good thing that there's that clarity because we've been sort of trying to grab the rope on both ends for the past 3-4 years, and we've paid the price for that, like with the Chesney extensions and the Arthur extensions and some of these
Yep.
ridiculous deals that we've done. It's just doesn't make any sense, right? So, and then the last point, I think the point about the deals that we've done in the Mercato so far, I think, and we talked about this, I think, the last live as well. We're heading down a dangerous path, in my opinion. If we keep going with this Koopmeiners pursuit and Galino and Nico Gonzales and all of those guys, we're heading down a very dangerous path. Because I'll give you a little bit of something to sort of to nudge our memories. From the summer of 2011, when we hired Conte, until the summer after Berlin, after 2015 Champions League final. You know what our biggest transfer purchase was?
Ooh. Um.
5 years. What was our biggest transfer purchase?
That's, oh my god. I'm gonna get this wrong. We signed Dybala that summer, but that doesn't
No, we
count, right?
signed Dybala. Yeah,
At
yeah, we
Berlin.
signed Dybala. But in the space between,
Oh,
yeah. So from Conte's hire till Champions League final, or the day after Champions League final,
I don't know.
our biggest purchase,
Is it Vidal or Vucinic?
it's Morata. You know
Oh,
how
it
much he
was
cost?
Morata. It was Morata. Yeah,
Yeah, he cost 20 million.
20 million. Yeah, and then we got it back.
20 million.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what our next biggest deal was after Morata? It was Jovinko for 13 million.
We bought him back.
This is the range that we were working with. But here's the thing, this isn't humiliating. It's not a bad thing. This is a great thing. This is how projects of that scope, when you're building from basically a ground zero, should work. We're treading down a really, really dangerous path because we're spending 50s and 60s and 30s and 40s in a summer that we should be rebuilding with, right? So let's use the example of the Vlahovic deal, right? The issue with the Vlahovic deal is the amount that we paid basically renders us immobile with anything related to Duchamp.
Yep.
We can't move him on. He can't be a periphery figure in the squad because he costs too much. We can't move him on. We can't renegotiate his contract. We're going to have a very difficult time with it. And then if you have deals like Vlahovic happening more than once in your squad, you're effectively handicapped for like the next 3-4 years. And this is what's happening. Koopmeiners for nearly 60 million, Nico Gonzales for 40 or something, Galeno and Conceição for 30. Like, for me, the idea about Giuntoli, and this was the correct idea, the person that hired Giuntoli was a genius if they intended to hire Giuntoli to bring players at an undervalued rate that would allow us to bet on people without compromising the integrity of the project long term. This is what we did in the first one. Vidal cost 10.5 mil, Alianto.
I know.
Vidal, 10.5. It's like, and now we're spending 60 million on Koopmeiners. It's like, if we go with the undervalued players, we give ourselves a chance to bet on people and not have to be in the position that we're in this summer, 3 years down the line.
You know what I think?
Because,
The slight difference is because when we did that with Conte, we were finishing seventh. You know, it was just man. I think the pressure is still on because we come from 9 titles. It's been 4 years now, but I don't like. I think the club is scared to tell the fans basically, we're gonna take a quote unquote massive risk. Like when you sell that when you're finishing seventh, it's much easier. Everybody's going into the new season, new stadium, no expectations. When we signed Conte, everybody was like, yeah. Nobody could have imagined what we did back then. Like that was insane. Like it came out of the blue, basically. I think everybody was shocked, and they hit the lottery. They did, and even moving on, getting Allegri. I remember that day. Everyone was like, "What are you doing?" And they hit the lottery again, you know. And then they stepped up, like you said, paid a bit more until they actually completely lost it, you know, and heads got lost basically when Ronaldo, like it got messy, you know. But I think that it wasn't needed. Like you were dominating Napoli even without Higuain. Like you shouldn't be buying. I like Higuain, but you shouldn't be spending 90 million on Higuain. You were dominating. Even if you didn't have Higuain, that following season you were gonna win again. Like I wasn't scared about, like they had Higuain, and I was like, cool, fine. That's about it basically. I think the difference is right now, after what we did the last 2 3 4 seasons, the club are scared of going down that route because they build up a certain value even off the pitch, which they are seeing now decline a little bit. And I think they got to a point where like we cannot allow this to decline even more, you know, taking risks with unknown players, not financially. So that's why I believe they're going that route. I see a mixture they're trying to do, or like at least trying to do, you know. But like you said, it's half-half. It's basically half-half. With Koopmeiners, like the price, I know you're not a big fan of Koopmeiners. Like I like Koopmeiners, but I like him because I've watched the Eredivisie and I've watched him so many times. So maybe that's why I'm a bit biased. And when Atalanta got him on the cheap, I was like, I see that Koopmeiners. I'm like, yeah, that's him. You know, the price tag is insane. But I got to a point where I'm like, you ask Motta, what do you want, Calafiori or Koopmeiners? And he's like, man, I build kind of Calafiori, but still I need Koopmeiners. I'm at a point where I'm like,
we don't know that. That's the thing. We don't even know that.
That's the rumor, basically. That's kind of rumor. Like if we can spend 60 million, we could have spent it on Calafiori, you know. So I'm just being a good guy. I'm like, okay, that's kind of true. It makes sense, basically. But if you promise him Koopmeiners, you need to give him Koopmeiners. Like if you told him the midway July, okay, I'm gonna hand you Koopmeiners. In Motta's head, he's like, okay, I have Koopmeiners. I'm gonna do this, this, and this. You know, when he comes back. If now second week of August, you're like, forget about Koopmeiners. You're getting 2 wingers. Make it work. I'm like, that's not a good that's not a good that's not a good start for me. You know, you probably will make it work, but it's like, I built this up in my head. Now I need to, what do I need to do? Is it Douglas Luiz? Are you gonna play, I don't know, the attacking role more so? I'm at that point where I'm like, if you pay 60 million for Koopmeiners now, that's your fault. That's your own fault right now. Because you went so deep right now that you cannot, you can turn back. But I think even fans who didn't want Koopmeiners will look at it and be like, oh, that's not looking good, you know? That's actually not looking good. So I get your point, and I'm a bit disappointed. And you see the rumors about we're interested in Nusa, you know, and like these type of players, you know. But that feels like the media is just piling on more so than we are actually interested in these players. The
Yeah,
Cabal one came out of nowhere, and that's maybe the type of deals you're talking about, like under the radar,
exactly.
very cheap, you know, not no risk at all. Actually, you know, even if it doesn't work out, it's 13 mil. We will survive that, no issue, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But I
Exactly.
I think Giuntoli is a bit scared of doing that too much right now because it's still Juve and not Napoli with a certain
Mhm.
expectations we built, you know, the past, I don't know, 12 years or so. I think it's two thoughts, you know, it's yes and it's no. And that could be dangerous, like you said. It could.
Mhm. That's the thing. For me, it's like if Giuntoli, and of course we're not gonna know behind the scenes. Like we're never gonna know if Motta prioritized Koopmeiners over Calafiori or any of these things that they say about Motta's preferences, Giuntoli's preferences. We're never gonna know. But if Giuntoli is scared, let's hypothesize that he's scared of the sort of the repercussions of going in on an unknown sort of youth development, undervalued development project like the one he did at Napoli, then he shouldn't be the one leading the project. Because, at the club of Juve's scale, you're not in a position to be listening to the fans and giving in to fans' pressure. Like, let's be real, fans have next to no knowledge about like how to actually run a club, how to even analyze a player, let alone run a club. If you ask a regular fan to analyze a player, just give them 90 minutes and ask them to analyze a player, and then you ask a half decent professional scout to do the same thing, the same task, the results would be wildly different. Wildly, right?
Fans are led by
So
emotions.
yeah, yeah, of course. So it's not, it's not an objective measurement of pressure that Giuntoli should be sort of succumbing to. Now, if the pressure is coming internally from an internal source, like for example, John Elkan, right? That could be more understandable in the sense that Elkan would bring Giuntoli in and say, well, you have 2 3 years to compete, or you have 2 years to compete maximum. That would be understandable. And then that would be John Elkan's mistake because Giuntoli's not shown you any evidence of being that guy. He's not a win first type of guy. Like, he's not a guy that's going to spend 50, 60, 70 million on 2 3 players every summer to try to win now, right? And that's not been the genesis of his work. Man, he went and got Kvara for Napoli for 10 million. And Kim Min Jae, I think, cost less than 20. Right? The only guy that cost anywhere near the amounts that we're hearing about Juve now is Osimhen. He's the only guy that cost Napoli that much. But we're spending excessively on players that are not going to move the needle, and that's the issue. Deals like the Cabal deal, I think, is a fantastic deal. That's a superb deal, right? Because there's no risk, and you're getting a player that's actually, in a couple of years' time, is going to be worth quadruple that already. So yeah,
Yeah,
if he's scared, it's not good enough.
I feel like he knows like what I can do at now. If I need so much time to bring these players in unknown and make it click to finally win a title, I'm not gonna survive at this club. I think he has that feeling, so he needs to kind of balance it out a little bit, and maybe he's going overboard. I'm not, we need a lot of work. I see people saying it's a mistake that we are doing so much in one summer or trying to do so much in one summer. Do you agree with that? Because I'm from the opinion of I don't like I agree with doing as much as possible because the players we're getting out, actually nobody wants to see on the pitch right now for us.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's more so about okay, you need to replace them. Like if you get them out, you also need to replace them. Even if it's a squad player, you need to hand Motta like a decent amount of squad in terms of actual numbers to actually
yeah,
again 2 players on the bench and 2 injuries, 1 injury, Miretti, you know, and maybe Milik is not 100% on the market, whatever, you know, it's still
yeah,
it's too little. Like you had no midfielders, but yeah, one, you had no wingers. Like you have so many needs right now, and I think fans are more frustrated because it started off kind of hot, you know. Oh, even if you
yeah,
don't like the
yeah,
players, it was like boom, 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 you know, clear,
yeah.
clear idea. Um, I don't think we really talked about it, or no, we didn't talk about it. We signed three, or Di Gregorio. I think we talked about Di Gregorio, but we signed
Yeah,
obviously Cabal, touched on him as well a little bit, but we signed Thuram for about 20ish, plus bonuses. We signed Douglas Luiz. I'm gonna say 50, but we know how the deal is structured. It's
about this. Yeah,
yeah, and with the players in and out, it's things that as a fan I don't want to really worry about finances, but it's 2024, so we need to do it, I guess. Um,
yeah,
what do you make of those? Because I know what you think about Douglas Luiz. I agree that I don't think we needed him. It's not a profile we needed. I like Douglas Luiz. I always like Douglas Luiz. As a
yeah,
player, I like to watch him. He's not okay. When I say I like to watch him, he's not. When I say I like to watch a player, because I said I like to watch Koopmeiners as well. People are like, oh, but he's not a flary player. I'm like, that doesn't really. It doesn't matter. It needs to be. When I say I like to watch a player, people are like, oh, it needs to be flair. It needs to be eye catching. Like that
yeah,
doesn't need to be. But what Douglas Luiz, I like to watch Douglas Luiz play. Was he a need?
yeah,
No, like it wasn't a need. For me, was Thuram a need? I think it was a good opportunity. You lost Rabiot, not like for like. I get it. I think they have some attributes that are comparable. But I've watched him play at the
yeah,
six against Brest, and I was positively surprised. I was like, interesting. And even against the
yeah,
next gen, you can see what he can do. Like he can win the ball back. He's actually a very smart player, the way he reads the game.
yeah,
And he has some decent feet on him. Like the goal was ridiculous. Like that was fantastic.
yeah,
But yeah, what do you make of those of those two deals?
yeah, yeah. So, well, there was the initial question that you asked was how what I think about the fact that you guys are seemingly trying to do everything in one window
Yeah,
versus doing it the more gradual sort of 2 3 year window type of way. And I think for me the answer is pretty clear. I think if you can do it in one window, you should aspire to do it in one window because it's all about resource allocation, man. Whatever resources we have, financial resources, educational resources, training resources, whatever the case may be, those resources are finite, and you can't be spending them in places where it doesn't make sense to spend them. So, for an example, if we were trying to go the gradual route, right? Let's say we didn't have a backup left back and we kept Alexandro for a year, for an example, right?
yeah,
So, what would the harm be? What would the opportunity cost be of keeping Alexandro? It would be giving Alexandro a year's worth of training that could have an integration into the squad and possibly integration into the starting 11 after some point. Giving that to a player who's not a part of your long-term project, who's not a part of your long-term projection. So you're essentially wasting resources, right? And you're wasting time because you're going to have to do that all over again next summer. While you could have done all of that now and then sort of work on the integration and development through the course of the season into the next window. So I always think it's better to do it and do it immediately, do it as soon as possible, get rid of deadwood as soon as possible. And all the serious clubs do it. I've mentioned this a long time ago, man. Inter before their first season and before their second season with Conte, they got rid of about 30 players in total.
yeah. I saw that. Somebody told
Yeah,
me that.
yeah. Man City did the same thing in Guardiola's first and second summers, about 25 players. And bro, Benfica the season they beat us in the Champions League. Do you know how many players they sold in total between the summer and January?
No.
Over 35. They changed 6 out of their starting 11. 6 starters. And they still won the league. And they still got to the quarterfinal of the Champions League and humiliated us. So change is not the issue in and of itself. It's what you do. It's not the change itself. It's what you do that counts. So for me, for example, if we're looking at the winger situation, I would rather that we go get low knees in for a year over spending 30 or 40 million on Galen or Conceição or Nico Gonzales. Because I'm always thinking, okay, we're trying to build a team that's worthy of Juventus. So being a top 5, 6 club in Europe, competing with Arsenal, with City, with Madrid, with all those guys. We're not anywhere near right now, but that's the aspiration. That's what we should be building towards. And now wasting 30 and 40 million resources on these guys that are inevitably going to end up situations that are like Arthur's now. You know, it's shortcuts. That's what it is. The Nico Gonzales deal, the Galeno deal, the Conceição deal, they're all shortcuts. It's basically, we have a need, let's fill it now immediately without worry or concern about the future. This is what we did with Artur, right? We had the need in the midfield. We had the deadwood that we need to get rid of, which is Pjanic. We had the need for Plus Valenza. We did the deal based on entirely on the short term, and we're still paying for it now, 4 years after. So it's the type of deals that doesn't make any sense at all. But if we're looking at the Mercato now, I think it all depends on what Motta wants to do. And this is the crucial point, because when I saw Kefren playing as the sixth, as the deepest midfielder against Brest, and today, I thought to myself, this makes the Douglas Luiz deal infinitely worse. Like, substantially worse. Like, it was already horrible. It was already a horrible deal, and it makes it beyond imagination. Like, it cannot be that bad. Like, it conceivably cannot be. Right? So my issue with Douglas Luiz, like my issue with Koopmeiners, isn't necessarily about the players themselves. I like the players. They're very good players. Right? Are they ceiling-raising players? Are they floor-raising players? Are they players that are going to have a significant difference on Juve's overall performance? No. And you'll see it. Right? I don't have a problem with sort of that manifesting over a couple of years or a year and a half. But at some point, we'll all collectively come to the consensus that these guys are not worth 50 or 60 million euros. Because they're not. Why are they not? Because there are two different types of players in the world, Alian. And this is my domain of expertise. I actually work professionally in football recruitment. This is my job. So I'm not spewing sort of opinions out of nowhere. There are two types of players in the world. There are players that have controllable, recreatable characteristics and players that don't. Right? So when you're looking at a player that you're trying to invest, ideally you want a player that the coach cannot replicate on a training ground. Right? So, for an example, when you have a Haaland, can you take Caio Jorge and make him into a Haaland on a training ground? If you're the best developmental manager in the world, if you're Guardiola, let's say you're Guardiola, can you take Caio Jorge and make him into Haaland? You can't, right?
No.
It's as simple as that. But you can take Fagioli and make him into Douglas Luiz. What does Douglas Luiz have that's intrinsically irreplicable, that cannot be taught? Nothing. No. It's the same thing with Koopmeiners. So you look at these types of players and then you spend premium amounts of money, 15, 16, 70 million euros, on players that you could have recreated in-house. I think that's a recipe for disaster.
You know what it is? What they have, and they have ready now. That's what they have. That's why early on I said the club is about, like, they're hinting on two thoughts. It's like yes, and it's no. We also need to do something now. Like Fagioli is not where Douglas Luiz is right now. Basically, whoever we have in the squad right now is not where Koopmeiners is right now. That's what it is. So at one point they might be, and then you're right. Then it's like, okay, we spent so much money, but he can do the same thing, and we got him for nothing. He came through our ranks basically, or we got him on a cheap. So I can see your point, but that's what I said early on. They're ready now. They have what they think potentially the others can do, but they have it right now. They can do it right now. That's the difference.
That's an important thing. It's an important thing for one reason and one reason only. Since they have this ready now tag that, let's suppose, justifies the price tag that we're paying, right? That means that they're bridge players, right? They're bridge signings. They're not signings for where we want to go. They're signings for where we are now, right? So we're spending 50 million players to approximate the distance between Fagioli's current performance level and his peak performance level. That's the price that we're paying for that distance. Can we sort of plug that gap with lesser money? Is that feasible? So for an example, a Gundogan or an Antoine Griezmann, right? Would those guys be lesser in terms of their current performance level than a Koopmeiners or a Douglas Luiz? No. But it's about how you're sort of plugging that gap and what resources are you using to plug it. 50 and 60 million for a bridge signing is just not smart. And this is the thing that the big clubs and the smart clubs do, right? So Real Madrid, for example, this past season, they didn't have a number 9, a center forward, right? They didn't have a ready number. They didn't even have a non-ready number 9. They didn't have a 9 at all, like a striker. What did they do? Did they go out and spend 40 and 50 million on a striker?
No.
No. What they went and did is that they got Josilo on a free loan, literally a free loan. And we're talking about the biggest, richest, most successful club in the world. Got Josilo on a free loan, dealt with him for a year, and then went out there and after their actual target, who significantly improves the team's performance level the following summer. Right? Because that's a club that's not wasting resources. Right? And this is the reality of it. That's why I said I would rather loans over Galino and Conceição and Nico Gonzales. If it's a bridge, don't waste resources on it. If it's a long-term piece, sure. That's why I was like, okay, if you're going to spend 35, 40 on Adieme, do it. Because that's a long-term piece. You can't coach Weah into being an Adieme, right? Or you can't coach Sikonov into being an Adieme. You can't do it. So you spend premium money to get it.
Yeah, I mean, compared to those, I agree. And actually, that's one of the questions. I will bring it up really quickly. One of the questions was, well, why does he think Douglas Luiz is an unmitigated disaster? I think, well, you got the response, Helene. That's why. But she also asked thoughts on Galeno, Yildiz, Weah, and Gonzales as possible wingers. That's going to be our wingers. What do you think of that group? Which means you're going to pay 60 million euros. Let's say 60 million euros in value for Galeno and Gonzales, because Yildiz and Weah are at the club. But what do you make of that? Really quickly, I like Yildiz. I don't like Weah. I like Gonzales. I don't like him for my club, if that makes sense. Like, he's underrated. When I see Gonzales, I think people are like, oh my God, he's crap. He's not crap, but it's like, for us, I'm like, that's not really what I want.
Yeah.
On Galeno, I'm going to be honest, I've not watched him play. Like, I don't, I've watched Conceição play. I didn't watch Galeno play. I didn't watch Porto games. So I'm going to be honest, I have no clue what type of player he is. Oh, you can go off stats, but I need to see the eye test as well. Like, because stats, if you look at Douglas Luiz stats, like, he's a goal-scoring machine. But it's at pieces, if you look into it, which is cool. Yeah. I get it, but still. So let's say if those are our winger options, those 4, what do you make of that?
Horrible. Horrible in terms of the collection of profiles, horrible in terms of the value that we've paid. This is quite frankly awfully horrible. It's like, okay, let's look at what a winger does. What does a winger do? Right? Let's analyze it very simply here, live on our channel. Right? What does a winger do? What does he do? He goes in the modern game, he goes into the 1v1 and is asked to dominate the 1v1 moment. Dominate the 1v1 moment means that he's either going to beat his defender, meaning that he's going to clear his defender. And if he's not capable of doing that, then he's going to create windows or angles for him to deliver crosses, shots, whatever it is, because he can't beat his defender. Right? So what you prioritize is beating the defender. That's the 1v1. So what are the characteristics that you need to beat a defender in 1v1? Right? You need to be quicker, faster, more explosive, more agile, more able to withstand contact, to be able to manipulate the ball well, all of these things. Are any of those guys except Yildiz capable of doing the things that I mentioned?
Okay, so I didn't watch Galeno play, so no. Other two's no.
I watched it. I'll tell you comfortably. No. Yeah. What about the rest?
What type of player is he then, Galeno? Because clearly the club or Motta's like, yeah, we are okay with spending 30 million on him. But what type of player is he then? Like, what is Motta looking at and saying, okay, that's something I need or I can use, rather than actually keeping Chiesa, even though that's a different topic or like different point, but still, like, why does Motta want Galeno? Why is he okay with signing Galeno?
Yeah, well, okay, so with Galeno, the reality of Galeno's profile is that he's not going to give us much in settled possession. Settled possession meaning that we're in the shape that we have in our possession phase, and he's asked to sort of go 1v1 with his fullback or create a window to sort of play a through ball or a cross or cut inside and shoot. These types of settled possession phases, he's not going to give us much in that regard because he doesn't have those qualities at all. He's not a 1v1 manipulator. He's not capable of dominating the 1v1 physically either. He doesn't have an elite sort of range of deliveries into the box in terms of crosses, ranges of crosses, lofted, far post, near post, all of these things. Cutbacks, low crosses. He doesn't have any of those at a high enough level to justify his purchase. So the things that are valuable with Galeno are all the other stuff aside from the settled possession phase. So defensive transitions, attacking transitions, and settled defensive phase. These are the things that Galeno has some quality because he's capable in transition. He's not sort of deadly, but he's capable. He can sort of bring you up the pitch with his ball carrying. He attacks space well, even though he doesn't have a gigantic physical advantage in terms of raw speed or acceleration. But what helps him is his frame. He's a big dude. I think he's like 6'1" or something. So that helps you in transition when you're having these sort of through balls played into him. He can act as a sort of a possession hub to help keep and consolidate attacks in attacking transition. He's a great finisher as well. Great finisher, I'll give you that. And he makes decent decisions in attacking transition. And then defensive transition and defending, he's just very, very selfless. It works extremely hard. Very disciplined, very selfish, works extremely hard, has long legs, so it helps him with his tackling and dueling radius and all these things. So he's the classic sort of Motta wide, hard-working winger. That's it. Not much value, in possession phase, but he gives you everything else. So, is it worth 30 million? That's up to you guys.
Okay, I mean, like I watched Salamakers play in the Belgium league, and when he joined Milan, I was like, like I actually people in the media were like, they couldn't believe it. Like over here in Belgium, like, usually they're like, oh my god, he's going to Milan. They were happy, but they were like, what just happened here, And well, he went and nothing happened, Then he went to Bologna, and he wasn't eye-catching, fantastic, where you're like, oh, we need to get him out of Bologna. But he was very effective for Bologna and for Motta. He was effective, and I've watched him in Belgium, like I said, and I was watching at Bologna. I was like, yeah, I mean, nothing special. That's not gonna get you moved to a top club, but for Motta, it worked. It was very effective, and he was important to him in many games. So maybe it's that, like you said, the way you described it. It's more than just I'm gonna beat you 1v1, so on. But when I look at the wingers and all those things, we like right now we like okay, we have Timothy, he has speed, but the moment he beats his man or makes an overlap, that final decision is always an error. Like it's always something that like he does things so well. He beats his man, he overlaps, he plays a 1-2, like it's all good, and then it's the final decision, and it's like you don't have it. Like you actually do not have it. I don't know what it is, because if he actually had a final decision, he could be a very good player, like a good squad player. He could be very effective for us, but he doesn't have, even today, or like the next gen game, he got the goal, awful goalkeeping, whatever. But there were moments where he got in behind, and then the cross was too low, too far, or he cut it back where I'm like, now you need to actually cross it, or he crossed it where I'm like, cut it back. Somebody's on the edge of the box solo. It's too many of those things where I'm like, you cannot go into a season with Timothy Weah as your main guy. Like it's impossible to think that, and that's for me a worry. I don't know Galeno if he comes again. Nico Gonzales, I like him as a player. Is he gonna move the needle? No. He's not gonna do that. So at the end of the day, I think the fan base is gonna pin a lot of hope on Yildiz, and he's gonna need to deal with the pressure that he's gonna need to go from 8 starts last season and then being benched for some reason to I need to do it every single week in, week out. It needs to come from me, which is a big demand. Is obviously not gonna happen.
It's not. Not ready.
He's not ready. It's gonna look awkward. It's gonna look bad. It's gonna look very good. It's gonna be all over the place with Yildiz. I don't think it's fair to demand that from him right now. What we saw last season was good, was exciting, was very interesting, but it's too much. You can see even in certain games right now, he tries to force it. Even last season, where I think he felt like it needs to come from me right now. Like if I'm not gonna do anything, we're just gonna kick the ball around for another 90 minutes. You know, he's a good player.
Yeah.
He's a very good player. He has very good, like, even the goal, like that's just clean. You know, it's kind of out of nowhere. It's like boom, clean. He's very good, but
Yeah.
like he tries too much at times, and it's up to Motta to actually calm him down, you know, and guide him in those things. Otherwise, he's gonna become a very frustrating player. Maybe a bit like Chiesa, where he tries, and it's not coming off, it's not coming off, it's not coming off. And actually, last season, nobody was not saying that he needs protection, Chiesa, because he's 25, 26, but it was like he's doing it over and over and over again. It wasn't working, and the spotlight was on him. Like, and Allegri was like, yeah, just keep doing that, you know, which is not working.
Yeah.
And fans got frustrated and so on, so on. That will happen with any player. Yildiz, no matter if a player does something over and over again and it's not working, he's in a bad moment, fans will turn against that player, even knowing deep down inside, actually, it's not that bad of a player. It's just a weird moment. And at that period of time, you need coaching. And if you bring in Nico Gonzales and he's also not to that level, it goes back to, bring Yildiz in again. Way too soon. Like,
Yeah.
for me, it is a worry, the links. It really is. But it started with, like, it started the entire season. You know, the entire summer, it was Sancho on loan, like you might have suggested, loan a player, short term. And that was actually the news, to be honest, very early on in the summer, from Alfredo Pedula saying Motta wants a loan. He doesn't want to commit to a winger right now. But things changed. We're looking to commit to winger, because who the hell is going to loan out their winger second week of August right now? It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, there's
Yeah.
no chance of that happening. So we
No,
need
there are available
who?
opportunities, but they're just not ones that the fans are gonna like. I personally would love, but they're not ones that the fans are gonna like.
Name them, because
Okay, so for me, okay, I'll tell you what I would ideally do if I had no transfer budget for the wings, right?
okay.
I would go get Raheem Sterling from Chelsea. That's one that I'm gonna get killed for, but he's still very, very, very good. Still very good, right? What Sterling suffers from is what a good friend of mine calls the ugly duckling syndrome, right? Is that he just doesn't look good
Yeah.
when he does what he does on the pitch. Just doesn't look good. It's this aesthetic bias thing where it's not pleasing on that, and he looks like everything he does is just coincidental, right?
Yeah.
But he's unbelievable. He's unbelievable. Incredible carrier over short, medium distances, right? Fantastic sort of nose for movement around the box, in the box. When he's sharp and fit, he's very, very effective in 1v1. Very effective in 1v1. And he's improved his decision making, sort of in terms of link up playing, connecting the team, and whatnot. He can play on both sides, right and left. It's a great deal. I would rather that over the names that we've been linked with, every day. And then the second one is one that is also going to confuse a bit of the listeners, but it's Joao Cancelo.
Oh,
Right?
I like Joao Cancelo. People
Yeah,
know.
you like him. You guys, me too. Me too. He was my favorite player. He was my favorite player back then when I was just watching casually. But yeah, Cancelo has so much value. So much value. Like that type of technical quality. He's not a guy that's gonna regularly beat his defender 1v1, but he's gonna create enough of a window or a chance to put crosses into the box, which is necessary with the type of striker that we have, like Vlahovic. This is an important thing as well. So when we're looking at the winger profiles, we need to associate the winger profiles with the profiles of the eights or the tens that are going to play next to them, and then the profiles of the center forwards that we have. And with Vlahovic, we don't need 1v1 threat as much as we do need deliveries into the box. That's the critical point, because that's the type of striker Vlahovic is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So Cancelo has sort of one of the most outrageous ranges of ball striking in the world. He just doesn't get enough credit for it. Like his range of deliveries on both right and left with the outside of his foot, with the inside of his foot, lofted, cutbacks, low crosses into the 6 yard line. He has everything in his locker in terms of his ability to create from these windows. He's unreal, right? And he's also a guy that sort of defends on the team level. Individually, as a defender, he's not good, but he defends on a team level, so he's committed in that sense. And he adds an incredible amount of technical security to the team, right? In the sense that you give the ball to Cancelo, he's not going to use it. He's not going to give it away. So I would rather those deals for sure. And both of these guys are guys that their clubs are not interested in keeping, right?
No.
Chelsea don't want to keep Sterling, yeah, and City don't want to keep Cancelo either.
No, Cancelo has been offered to us, but that could be. Who knows? Like, if we don't have the money, we need two wingers, or like we need something. It could be, but I don't think the club is gonna bring in Cancelo. And I've been honest. I've always said don't bring old things back. That's my stance. No matter what the player is, don't go back to old things, like ever.
Reheated soup.
Sorry.
It's the reheated soup.
Yeah, it's just like it could be, like, name the player. I'm like, nope. It's done. You know, you moved on. Just move on right now. Yeah, that's just my sense. But I like, people know how much I like Joe Cancelo. I still cannot believe we made that deal in the past. But I'm not gonna open that box again because we'll kick off in the comments. But yeah, it is what it is. I'm assuming right now we just need to see what the club is gonna make of the remainder of the 2-3 weeks of the window. See if they can actually prep the club, like actually squad building, like forget about like just actual numbers, like bodies in the team right now, because
Yeah.
I have a Sunday league team with more players right now. I'm being serious. Like we have 17 players showing up every single week. We have a bigger squad than a professional team 2 weeks before the season kicks off. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a reality. I'm gonna ask you a final question before we wrap up, because I'm not sure when we will have this chat again. Probably when the season's already in. You know, we already played 2-3 games.
Yeah.
Are you confident that we will have a good start to the season? And let's say we're recording this now. Let's say we get Toribo and we get Galeno, maybe or maybe not Koopmeiners. But are you confident that the start of the season will be positive? And with positive, I'm not necessarily saying 9 out of 9 points, but you look at it and you're like, yeah, we can have a good season with this, because it's good enough to overcome difficulties we had last season, meaning we will have a better season. We will not collapse. We will not win 1 out of 12, for example, failing to beat Empoli, Verona, Udinese in a time span of like 4 weeks or so. Are you confident that that's going to be the case?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. But that's no indication on Motta or the project and whatnot. It's just the circumstances. Horrible circumstances. I wouldn't want to be the Juve's coach right now. I mean, I would because it's Juve, but you get my point, right? We don't have a squad. We don't have preseason stuff, man.
I have the same feeling, and I'm
What
going
about
to the
you?
Roma game. No, I have the same feeling. I know it's gonna be a very bumpy start. I think it's gonna be a very bumpy first part of the season. I think we will pick ourselves up in the second part, where everything is stabilizing and okay, this is it, and people. Because really quickly, I watch preseason games. You can see Di Gregorio playing the ball over the ground. You know, one touch midfield, but you can see it's off. You know, you can see they're not on the same page. The idea is good. They're good ideas, not the same page. You know,
Yeah.
they flick it, and you look at Locatelli, and it's like, I should have been here. I already made 2 steps up the pitch, and it's like counterattack, like
Yeah.
silly, like very small errors, but that tell you it needs time. It's gonna need time. It's gonna be frustrating at times. It's gonna look fantastic at times. I think where you're like, oh my god, next week we're back, and then next week it's the mistakes you saw in week 1. You're like, how does that come? Because it's about
Yeah.
optimism. Like Bologna didn't play that. Like he had Bologna for like it didn't came out of nowhere. You know, he tried
Yeah.
things. You know, and he had a different squad, you know, moved it on a little bit. Like he tried things. And yes, it's Bologna, less pressure. You can do whatever you want. But if you want to start again, for the fans who actually believe in it, you're going to need to be a little patient. I don't expect us to win. I've said it many times. If Allegri said, if Jurgen Klopp came in with this team, I didn't expect us to win because Inter are the machine we were a couple of years back, where it's like,
Mm.
yeah, man, like everything they do is just memorized. Like they're that good right now, you know.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
don't expect
yeah.
us to beat Inter to the title. I don't like. I don't think if anyone does that, you're lying. You know, I didn't expect that last scene. I said like make it look half decent, which we absolutely did not. You know,
Yeah.
but my expectation is yeah, obviously top four, that's a given. But make it look respectable. You know, just be up there, show something where I can go into next summer. Where I'm like, okay, we need a few tweaks, but we're up there right now. We can do it.
Hmm.
That's what I
Hmm.
want, but I know it's not gonna come off from day one. Like even the Como game can look absolutely horrible, and I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. I completely agree with you. Totally. It's like, we don't really have the grounds to expect much right now. We really don't. Even though this is just, it doesn't feel good, and it's almost disrespectful when I hear somebody from Juve, officially from Juve, saying that our goal or our minimum like requirement is to qualify for the Champions League. It's just,
Yeah, man.
it boils my blood. We are. This is Juventus, right? This is.
Yeah,
I feel like they don't understand that well enough. The fact that it's Juventus that they're talking about.
that should never
But
be
yeah,
said. Like you get top you get Champions League because you compete. You're Juve basically.
yeah,
That's like top four. If somebody tells me the goal is top four, I'm like, that's not a goal. That's just default. Like you're competing.
yeah.
Yeah, with all due
That's
respect, yeah,
worst case scenario.
yeah. Like
Yeah,
it's Inter, and then it's like whatever, you know. So
yeah,
I'm not. I shouldn't be worried about top four. It shouldn't be crossing my mind. Oh, we need to get top four. It's like yeah, you get top four because you try to win. That's why you get top four. That's how I look at it. But
yeah.
it's a new thing, you know. It's like Wenger like coming
With
like
Arsenal.
scamming the Arsenal fans into believing top four is fantastic. I'm like, it's not. If you get dunked on by Bayern 5-0 every single season in the Champions League, it's not that fantastic, is it? But
Yeah,
yeah,
even that analogy doesn't apply to us because
no,
it's almost disrespectful to put us in the same sort of breath
no, no,
with
no, no.
Arsenal.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that.
This is Juventus, and then Arsenal is out of the screen. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, like Arsenal fans are like they like pretty things. They don't care about winning. I'm convinced about that right now. They care about looking good. And if they look good,
Yeah,
they think
but
it's a win. It's not a win. You know, I
yeah,
rather look like Atletico Madrid and win every single week than year, or win a couple of things than look like Arsenal and win nothing. Like it doesn't buy me anything. You know, when I'm 80, I'm not gonna sit back and I'm like, "Oh, we played good football under Arteta." Yeah, Arsenal fans might be, but I'm like, I'm gonna sit back. And I'm like, I watch my team win 9 in a row. Crazy.
yeah,
Never gonna happen again, probably. But I saw it. So
yeah.
but yeah, man, we're gonna wrap this one up. It's been a very good one, very interesting one, especially compared to the first one. Makes a big difference a month, you know, from a lot of rosy dreams to some harsh
Yeah,
reality. I'm gonna say,
yeah,
but Kanan, it's been a pleasure having you on as always. Looking forward to the next one as well.
of course.
Um, but yeah, I'm gonna link his Twitter profile in the description. Also, I'm gonna tweet it out so everybody can click it. I recommend following him 100%. Yes, at times it's controversial. You won't agree, but that's opinions. Like nobody agrees with me all the time. Just keep it
Yeah,
clean, and it will all be good as always. But yeah, man, people in the chat, in the comments, like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you very soon. Ciao.
all right. Peace out.